Americans from all over the United States are protesting in Washington, D.C. against the use of the name Macedonia by one of the republics that broke away from Yugoslavia. You may ask, what's in a name? Why should Greeks care? But for them, Macedonia is more than a name. It is the northern province of Greece. By usurping the name Macedonia, the former republic of Yugoslavia is a potential threat to Greek territory and claims the Greek heritage and history. The United Nations, for the first time in their history, deny to recognize the breakaway republic with the name Macedonia and its flag that usurps the ancient Greek emblem, Vergina star. The republic is surrounded on the west by Albania, on the south by Greece, east by Bulgaria, and north by Serbia, and is inhabited today by Slavs, Albanians, Bulgarians, Gypsies, Greeks, and Turkish people.
The root of the problem is that you have the breakup of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, as we had known it up until about a year and a half ago, does not exist anymore. Many of the republics that made up the old federal Yugoslav state for the last 45 years have now declared themselves independent. And they're seeking international recognition, as you have seen from the case of Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and so forth. The so-called Republic of Macedonia, which was part of the federal Yugoslav Republic, now has also seceded from the old Yugoslav Republic, and it wants to be recognized by that name. Greece, of course, has been objecting to that, claiming that if a formal republic, an independent republic, is created by that name, it will use that name to have territorial claims on its neighbors, and that includes Greece as well as Bulgaria. And this is why Greece has made a very strong stand in the European community, not denying the right of the people who inhabit the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia the right to be independent, simply demanding that they do not use a name that is going to intimate claims against its neighboring countries. Mm-hmm. And the European community so far appears to have agreed with the position of the Greek government.
No one have any objection to that small republic to have an independence. But the objection from the civilized world and the European community is that no one can have an independence on behalf of another nation. No one can take the Greek history and the Greek civilization and the Greek names and take advantage of that and try to present that it is a nation that has heritage from Alexander the Great. That's why it's very dangerous, because we do not negotiate our heritage, we do not negotiate our civilization, we do not negotiate our names.
I think that that's the political ploy by the Greek government. I think they're fanning the anxieties of the Greek people. Macedonia has absolutely no army. Macedonia has guaranteed territorial borders through its constitution. If we really look at a free Europe, if we're really looking at the European community, what are the four ingredients? The four ingredients is human rights for all minorities living in each country, open borders, democratic institution, and a market economy. And if the countries really believe in that, the borders and names won't amount to anything. And I think Greece is just raising a boogeyman that isn't there.
But on the one hand, the authorities in Skopje claim that they do not have any claims on Greece or Bulgaria. At the same time, they turn around and they use emblems from within Greece, part of Greek history, from the name of Alexander the Great, whom they claim to be one of their ancestors, down to monuments such as the White Tower in Salonika, and they claim that this is theirs. Now, I think there is a lot of contradiction when one says that we do not have territorial claims, but yet you use as your national emblems the names of historical figures, the historical monuments of another country.
A map published published by the Macedonian National Liberation Army of Independent Macedonia, the envisioned nation includes areas of eastern Albania and southwest Bulgaria and a quarter of mainland Greece.
That's the unified Macedonia. That's the three parts of Macedonia. That map shows what Macedonia was at the beginning of the Balkan War. That map shows Macedonia before Greece had a chunk of it, before Bulgaria had a chunk of it, and before Serbia had a chunk of it.
VMRO is the Republic's largest political party that promotes the idea of Great Macedonia. The party's last electoral poster is showing part of the northern Greece annexed by the Republic.
You see, you have parties, political parties within the so-called Republic of Macedonia, like the VMRO, which is an ultra-nationalist party that claims basically that there is only one Macedonia, and that Macedonia contains all the territories that belong not only to the so-called Republic of Macedonia, but also the Bulgarian part of Macedonia and the Greek part of Macedonia. So the fear of Greece is not that the Macedonian Republic of Skopje is going to pose a military threat to Greece. This is silly. It will create, though, propaganda wars against Greece with the claims that there are fictitious Macedonian minorities within Greece, and will attempt to convince the international community that all these areas calling themselves Macedonia ought to unite together in some day in the distant future.
The European community, though, has put forward conditions that the former Republic of Macedonia has to meet prior to recognition: change its name, revise their constitution, and to cease and desist from making any territorial claims against neighboring countries. Desperate to win international recognition and receive economic assistance from the World Bank and European community, the former Republic of Yugoslavia amended its new constitution in January 1992 to state that it has no territorial claims against its neighbors and it would not interfere in their international affairs.
They claim they do, but of course remember that when the Soviet Union was intact, it had really a very wonderful constitution in place. In paper, the Soviet constitution was one of the most democratic constitutions on earth. The question is how they applied that constitution. So to me, for the Republic of the so-called Republic of Macedonia to claim that they have a democratic constitution, I'm happy for them, but I would like to see what they're going to do when they come down to applying that constitution in free elections, in upholding civil rights for all the people who live through that ethnically diverse republic, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Mr. Grigorov, in his interview in New York Times, when he visited the United States, he claimed that they don't have anything to do with the ancient Macedonians. And this is very simple, because Alexander the Great was 4th century BC. And the Slavs came the 6th century AD, which means there are 1,000 years between the time of the appearance of the Slavs and the time of the Hellenic civilization. Second, it's not only the provocation of claiming that Alexander the Great was not Greek, because they cannot have any findings about any inscriptions, any coins, any writing statements that Alexander the Great wrote in any other language except the Greek. On the other side, we have 4,000 inscriptions where the name of Alexander the Great is mentioned in pure Greek language. His teacher was Aristotle, a very famous Greek. Not only that, when we have the war in Iraq also, and they found coins, on one side it was the number 5, and the other side it was Alexander the Great. And everything was in the Greek language. So they cannot falsify history.
For the first time in the world's history, it is a group of people who question the Greek identity of Alexander the Great.
Alexander was not a Greek. You claim him, you've taken him as Greek, but Alexander was not the same Greek that the Greeks today are. He is not the same Greek that Aristotle was.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm not reading Greek history books. I'm reading history books that aren't Greek. Here's our emblem. Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, this is the Greek second city, Thessaloniki.
That's Beyazkuli. That's the White Tower where our freedom fighters were incarcerated and tortured by the Turks.
So you don't think so that the White Tower of Thessaloniki, that right now
He took it from the Turks. It didn't belong to the Greeks. He took it from the Turks. It belonged to the Turks. Turks built it.
Thessaloniki is a Greek name.
Well, it might be. It's a Byzantine
And
name.
also, I don't know if you know Andronikos and other people there.
Thessalonica comes from Byzantine times. And remember, for centuries, the Byzantine emperors were Romans. They weren't Greeks.
And may she be called Thessaloniki, as Philip of Macedonia named his first daughter. Later, Cassander, Alexander the Great's general and heir to his throne, married the princess and gave her name to the city he was building. After that, the city suffered successive waves of invaders, but each time, after each devastating attack, Thessaloniki remained unbowed and retained its ancient Greek monuments intact. Thessaloniki is the second largest city of Greece with a population of more than 1 million people. It is one of the most alive and energetic cities of Greece. In Skopje, the capital of former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, minarets soar above silver domes and ramble of bizarre stalls, emphasizing the lonely horizontalness of the plain on which the city resides. Men in white skullcaps play backgammon and drink rosehip tea. The name Macedonia is derived from the name of its mythological progenitor, Macedon, the son of Zeus. In the Dorian dialect, Macedon meant tall and brave.
We call on our European fellow citizens and their governments not to associate their name with an act by recognizing the former Yugoslav Republic with the name Macedonia, because this directly harms not only the history and identity of Greece, but undermines the stability of the whole Europe.
This resolution, adopted February 14, 1992, at Thessaloniki, where over 1.5 million people demonstrated and declared that Macedonia is a Greek entity, historically and culturally.
How can a group of people who for the first time used the geographical term Macedonia some decades ago can deprive us from our history that is 4,000 years old? How can they shamelessly circulate maps where our city is included in their state? If these people can be called Macedonians, what is our name? We are the only Macedonians with 4,000 years of history. The motherland of Alexander the Great, son of Philip, is Greece. We are here to convey the message, Molon lave, which means come and get it.
Macedonia is Greece. Greece is Macedonia. This was the declaration of people of Greek descent and friends of Hellenism in the Chicago Pan-Hellenic Rally at Daley Plaza on April 18, 1992.
Greek brothers, Macedonia is Greece.
And it was the message to the Greek demonstrators from David Orr, former mayor and present Illinois Cook County clerk.
In support of 4,000 years of honorable Greek heritage, Greek history, I support your cause today. I will do what I can to lobby in Washington, D.C. For you.
Macedonia is Greece. Greece is Macedonia. They are two inseparable notions.
The problem then starts when Tito wants to give to this republic an ethnic sense, and by creating one republic with the name of Macedonia, monopolize the name of Macedonia. At a later stage create a Republic of Macedonia which would have historical irredentist claims against the Greek regions. There is no nation, there is no Macedonian nationality as these Slavs are claiming. There is no one uniform ethnicity throughout the course of history that is called Macedonian. It has a Macedonian language, as the Skopjans are claiming.
The Republic of Macedonia in the Yugoslav portion is a Slavic republic. Its population is roughly 2.3 million, with several hundred thousand Albanians living within its borders.
How many thousand?
I assume several hundred thousand. I don't know exactly, but the western part of Macedonia has a huge Albanian population.
And is the only population in the republic? Only Albanians live there? Or what is the other?
Well, the others, you know, it's diverse. It's pluralistic. There are probably within the republic 500,000 people who would consider themselves to be ethnic Bulgarians. Then apart from the Albanians, there's some Vlachs that live there. There are obviously some Gypsies. There's a minority enclave of Jews, and then the rest of the people consider themselves just to be Slav Macedonian, just their own nationality, speaking their own language.
We asked Mr. Lebamov that if the Republic has Albanian population, 500,000 Bulgarians, Gypsies and Jews, how can they preserve themselves as an ethnic group under the name Macedonia?
Because they're all Macedonians. Because the name of the land is Macedonia. And the name of their republic is Macedonia. And they want to treat themselves there's no more diverse than the United States. Canada, look how diverse it is. And it doesn't matter whether they come from Greece, they come from Macedonia, they come from Bulgaria, they come from Czechoslovakia, they come from Israel, they come from Russia, they're Canadians.
This language is simply, well, it's not simply, but it's essentially a local variety of Slavic. And since there is a linguistic continuum from Bulgarian all the way up into Slovenian, in other words, there are no absolute boundaries except man-made boundaries, but there are no linguistic boundaries in the forms of Slavic. What you have here is here in the triangle about here. You have a local variety of Slavic that is vaguely reminiscent of Bulgarian, because essentially these dialects that we call Makedonski, or this language, is closest to Bulgarian than to any other standard language. It would be absurd to say that a Slavic language is a modern reflex, a modern descendant of the ancient Macedonian language.
We asked Dr. Kazazis why he believes Tito chose this name.
What I understand, and I may be wrong, and those from whom I got the idea may also be wrong, from what I understand, he chose the term Macedonia and Macedonian because he had some views on Greek territory and perhaps even Bulgarian territory. Tito and his people realized that those people were not Serbians. They were calling themselves Bulgarian, but the moment was propitious for someone to tell them that they were not Bulgarians. They had just been suffering under the Bulgarians. So they said, what the hell, let's set up a new entity here.
After 1945, when Tito created that fictitious national entity that he called Macedonian, what happened was that a lot of these people have also been brainwashed that they are a different nation, that they're not Bulgarian, that they're not Serbian, but they're Macedonian, identifying themselves with the locality where they came from. There is no doubt that a lot of these people came from the classical region of Macedonia. But the fact that people came from a particular locality does not mean that they constitute a separate nation.
Tito created the Republic of Macedonia in his effort to try to solve the problem, the so-called Macedonian problem, in a unilateral way favorable to Yugoslavia. By creating such a republic and by trying to give it an ethnic identity and an ethnic language, the so-called Macedonian language, Tito tried to create a federal republic which at a later stage would swallow the Greek region of Macedonia, and therefore Yugoslavia would gain access to the sea, and the whole Macedonian region would be a part of Yugoslavia. The only Macedonians from antiquity until today are the Greek Macedonians, those that follow, that start during the era of Alexander the Great and Philip, and they come to today and they're inhabitants of the Greek part of Macedonia. Following the occupation of Macedonia by the Roman and the Byzantine Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Slavs from the north, some Slavic tribes and Proto-Bulgars, as they call them, tried to move into the area and make settlements. Initially they were expelled by the region by the Byzantine, by Basilios II, the Byzantine emperor. But finally they did manage to create some settlements in the south. So the term Macedonia increasingly lost its ethnic content and became a geographical term to characterize any inhabitant of Macedonia in general. Suffice it to say that during the late years of the Ottoman Empire, before the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, the Greeks had managed with their financial strength and their cultural strength, having some help by the Greek Church, to Hellenize these Slavic speaking people that had inhabited Macedonia. And the proof of the fact is that these people fought on the Greek side towards the liberation of Greece by the Ottoman Empire.
The strong will of the people of Greece, wherever they live, from the smallest village to Athens, is to put a halt to the plans for further destabilization in the fragile area of the Balkans.
We're very aware and knowledgeable about our history and our culture, and we're not going to let anybody use our history and our culture for their expansionist plans.
The danger for the Balkans will be, one, because of irredentist activities against neighboring countries, and that includes Bulgaria. The danger for the Balkans will be if there is ethnic conflict within that so-called Republic of Macedonia, whose population is only probably Slavic-speaking and Slavic by background, at best at about 60%. The rest are Albanians and others. And if there is a breakup of that particular country, you're going to see another civil war, Croatian-style, Bosnian-style, and at that point there is a possibility that other countries are going to get involved, Bulgaria in particular, Albania also, that has a very significant part of the population in that country, plus the fact that in the long run Bulgaria has designs on the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, and therefore anytime you have those kinds of interests by outside powers, that spells long-term trouble.
I think there is the scenario of really the instability in the area, and especially what the U.S. Kosovo find that it's the next place for a blow-up. And I think this is the very word of a blow-up, or the next blow-up comes from statements from the State Department. Then they see, or some analysts see, that there might be a more general conflagration of different states getting into the fray. I do not see that is a possibility because no one really wants to live by the reputation of the Balkans and Balkanize the whole area. I think there are statements of wisdom and moderation coming from different directions. I do not believe, and I guess, this is my personal bias, that there will be a more general fighting. But including Greece, we are really afraid, or concerned, I would say, not afraid, of the spillover. In other words, there will be this overflow of hostilities. There might be a terrific problem of refugees going to different directions.
I hope not. I hope not. Because if any one of those countries, where does it end? If it includes Macedonia, it's going to get Turkey involved. It's bound to get Bulgaria involved. I mean, we'll have a conflagration in the Balkans like we have never seen. It'll be worse than the Balkan Wars of 12 and 13. I mean, it opens, Gerhard, it opens up the whole can of wax. I mean, this is Turkey's excuse to go after Cyprus. It'll be such a Pandora's box that we'll wish for years that we never open the lid.
The alternative is to be violent. Now, what type of violence? God knows. How violent they can escalate. Who could believe that what's happening in Bosnia will be happening? No one. What is going to happen if tomorrow someone tries to pass through Greece and say, well, this is my home, from the other side? What is going to happen? That's why we have international organizations. That's why we have the international justice. That's why we have procedures.
The European community unanimously decided on December 16, 1991, not to recognize the former Yugoslav Republic until it changed its name. This decision was reaffirmed on May 2nd and June 26, 1992. In January 1993, the United Nations denied to recognize the republic with the name Macedonia and its flag that usurped the ancient Greek emblem, Vergina star. If the Macedonian issue is not resolved according to the historical truth and through international justice, it might create a turbulence in the Balkans.